With the latest expansion pack released, I logged into The Sims 4 ready to dive into the world of fairies. I picked none other than the ultimate fairy duo Lucifer and Tinkerbell, and brought along Celeste, who in this particular lifetime is just a regular human trying to keep up. While setting them up in the creator sim, I gave the fairies the brand new traits, mystical and disruptive, for a little extra. As for Celeste, she got the new nature nomad aspiration. Then naturally, I spent some time digging through casts to give my fairies the perfect outfits, because no one is summoning the forest spirits in mismatched shoes. After setting everything up, I dropped into the brand new world of Ines Grain, where my fairies wasted no time flexing their powers. With a bit of magic and probably some dramatic flair, they conjured up a little dwelling to live in. They even gave themselves a pond to bathe in, which was oddly resourceful. And that was about it. Apparently summoning a shower, bed or toilet was beyond their magical ability, so naturally they ended up sleeping on the ground. But hey, at least that's a new feature in the expansion pack. Once the conjuring was done and their little magic setup was complete, my Sims had a sudden realization that they were family. They made an effort to get along, and for a moment it actually seemed like peace was possible. But of course, that didn't last. Lucifer, being Lucifer, decided to stir the pot by spreading a bit of fairy propaganda, which didn't sit well with Celeste. She wasn't having it. To smooth things over, Lucifer offered her a hug, and just like that, everything was fine again. Classic Sims logic. Then in a very own brand move to reassert his place as head of the family, Lucifer started reminding Celeste about their wedding. He even paused a few times to nostalgically recall their vows, with a not so subtle message tucked in: behave and obey him, no matter what. He wasn't done it. He started gesturing dramatically with his hands, giving the full monologue experience, while poor Celeste just stood there listening, probably wondering how her life ended up like this. Meanwhile, their daughter Tinkerbell had clearly had enough of her parents' magical soap opera. So in true fairy fashion, she took matters into her own hands and zapped her father. Lucifer, being a surprisingly good sport, actually appreciated Tinkerbell's bold move. He admired her quick thinking, even if it involved getting zapped. Celeste saw her window of opportunity and made a run for it, trying to escape her overbearing husband. But Lucifer had other plans. Tapping into his fairy instincts, he jumped over to a nearby moody shrub to harvest some raw emotions. After all, for fairies, emotions are basically their bread and butter, or in this case, a full buffet. While Lucifer was busy emotion farming, Celeste found herself deep in conversation with a group of green-skinned neighbors. Naturally intrigued, she asked what their deal was, and they explained that they were plant sims, transformed after eating a mysterious forbidden fruit. Celeste, being the curious soul, couldn't help but ask if they happened to have an extra one lying around. Without missing a beat, one of them casually pulled a glowing fruit straight out of his pocket, as if that was totally a normal thing to carry around. Not wanting to leap into leafy territory unprepared, Celeste went to the fairy council liaison and asked whether eating the forbidden fruit was safe. But the liaison just shrugged and said she only dealt with the fairies. Plant sims weren't exactly her department. Still, Celeste was determined. Curiosity got the better of her, and despite the lack of official advice, she decided to take a bite out of the fruit anyway. The moment Celeste took a bite of the forbidden fruit, things escalated quickly. She began to levitate off the ground, twirling dramatically in the air. With one final spin and a confident puff of her chest, the transformation was complete. Celeste was now officially a plant sim, leaves, glow and all. Just then, Lucifer arrived on the scene with Tinkerbell by his side, only to find Celeste in full plant sim form, glowing, leafy and unbothered. Tinkerbell, ever the opportunist, immediately asked her mom if she had another fruit. Without a second thought, Celeste reached into her pocket and casually handed over the remaining one. In the background, Lucifer was not having it. He was busy throwing a full-on fit with Karen, the fairy council liaison, scolding her for not stopping Celeste from eating the fruit in the first place. As the fairy HR, Karen tried to calm the situation and maybe save her job. Karen decided to make amends. To smooth things over, she offered Lucifer a fable, a special task to acquire an emotion potion from one of the fairies living in town. It wasn't exactly an apology, but for Lucifer it was at least something productive to channel his drama into. With a new task in hand, Lucifer marched off to find a fairy who could help and ended up interrupting Tinkerbell mid-conversation to ask for an emotion potion. Tinkerbell was not impressed. Clearly annoyed by her father's dramatic timing, she stormed off to the nearby apothecary table to vent her frustration, mixing herbs, muttering under her breath and probably imagining turning him into a toad. Lucifer asked the fairy for the emotion potion, but she wasn't exactly feeling generous. She straight up refused at first. Naturally, Lucifer responded the only way he knew. How? With maximum hand drama. The flailing, the gesturing, the theatrical signs, it was a full-on performance. Eventually, the fairy gave in, mostly just to get rid of him. She agreed to hand over the potion for 50 simoleons. After finally getting his hands on the potion, Lucifer decided it wasn't enough to just walk away. He had to prove a point. In classic power move fashion, he turned right back around and absorbed the fairy's emotions just to remind her who's really in charge. With the emotion potion secured and a dramatic scene successfully executed, Lucifer took flight and soared over to Karen to deliver the goods. Looking for a break from Lucifer's theatrics, Karen gave him another fable, this time sending him to Sylvanglad to catch a crayfish. Clearly, it was less of a mission and more of a polite exile. Lucifer stumbled upon a glowing rock in the middle of the town, and when he interacted with it, it offered to take him to Sylvanglad for a prize of fairy dust. Even magical rocks don't give out free rides. After handing over the fairy dust, Lucifer made it to Sylvanglad with Celeste not far behind. The couple wandered into a nearby fishing pond and in true married couple fashion, started fishing on the opposite sides of the water. Celeste had no trouble reeling in fish after fish like she was born with a rod in her hand. Lucifer on the other hand, nada, not even a nibble. Desperate to complete his fable, he moved to a quiet spot by the riverside, hoping his luck would change. And of course, Celeste tagged along. She ended up catching all the tray fish before he could even blink. Brutal. Meanwhile, back home, Tinkerbell was struggling with her sleep needs. They signed up for the nature life, so I told her to sleep on the floor like the nature-loving fairy she is. The couple finally returned home exhausted from their magical fishing adventure. Celeste didn't waste a second. She followed Tinkerbell's lead and crashed on the floor too. Lucifer, despite being a total failure at fishing, came home bursting with confidence and energy. Instead of resting like everyone else, he zipped around the lot, proudly tormenting anyone he could by absorbing their emotions, all in the name of survival. Classic Lucifer, dramatic, unbothered, and mildly annoying. Lucifer kept at it all night, floating around, stealing emotions like a midnight buffet, completely ignoring the concept of sleep. By morning, Tinkerbell finally woke up and quickly came to a harsh realization they still didn't have a shower. So with no other option, she marched over to the nearby pond and took a bath like a true forest fairy. Celeste eventually woke up and had her own plant-based epiphany. Being a plant sim meant she didn't need food, just a whole lot of water. So naturally, she followed Tinkerbell's lead and headed straight for the pond. Breakfast is optional, but morning bath in leaf juice is a necessity when your skin is green. Tinkerbell, now fully awake but running low on emotions, started to feel the fairy burnout. With no choice left, she did what any emotionally depleted magical being would do. She went off to absorb emotions from someone nearby. Tinkerbell approached a nearby fairy, ready to absorb some much-needed emotions to stay afloat. But just as she was about to do her thing, her father Lucifer dramatically collapsed right in front of her, completely drained of energy. It was a magical meltdown, and honestly the timing couldn't have been more theatrical if he had planned it. Back on the home lot, Celeste decided it was time to bring in some simoleons, preferably without leaving the lot. So she signed up for the brand new naturopath career, crossing her fingers for work from home assignments. Nature, wellness, and not having to change out of her plant sim outfit. Perfect. And just like that, the game wasted no time. Celeste's first work from home task was to craft 3 elixirs. There was just one tiny problem. They didn't own an apothecary table. Luckily, someone in the neighborhood had one set up. And Celeste didn't hesitate to make herself at home. But once she got there, she realized she didn't have the skills to actually craft anything useful. So she did the next best thing. She rolled up her leafy sleeves and started practicing. After gathering enough practice and purchasing the proper ingredients from the apothecary table, Celeste was finally ready to get serious. She rolled her metaphorical sleeves and began crafting actual cures. No more mixing leaves and hoping for the best. Over at the fairy council, Lucifer was back to his usual antics. He began openly demeaning the plant sims, throwing shade like it was part of his daily ritual. But he didn't stop there. To really make his point, he cast an ailment that caused objects in their surroundings to break down. It was petty, over the top, and absolutely on brand for him. Later that night, Caleb Veto, Forgotten Hollow's resident vampire, tried to sneak in under the cover of darkness, clearly on the hunt for a midnight plasma snack. But Lucifer wasn't about to let that happen. Taking it upon himself to protect the town, he confronted Caleb and used his powers to absorb the very essence of his vampirism, stripping him of his dark gift and turning him into a plain old mortal. Naturally, Caleb didn't take his sudden humanity well. The moment he realized he was no longer a vampire, he whipped out his phone and started texting his mom, probably something along the lines of, "Lucifer just ruined my entire afterlife." By morning, word of Lucifer's powers had spread beyond the town. A furious werewolf stormed in, desperate for relief. Without hesitation, Lucifer soared through the air and twirled gracefully around the beast's head, casting a wave of calm. The rage melted from the werewolf's eyes, but he wasn't pleased. It wasn't the outcome he wanted, but it was what he asked for. Once it was done, the werewolf fell to his knees as if bound by invisible chains. He clawed at the earth with his overgrown nails, snarling through the last remnants of rage, until finally his beastly form faded, leaving only a weary man in its place. Lucifer returned with a smirk, not to collect a fee but to claim what was his by nature. With a flick of his fingers, he siphoned the werewolf's emotions, leaving behind only silence. Celeste suddenly remembered her work assignment to research natural living. Without a laptop or even a cousin named Alexa, she marched to the local park, plopped herself in front of a public computer and began aggressively googling herbs, composting, and how to talk to plants without looking crazy. On the other hand, Lucifer casually brought one of the garden gnomes to life and asked it to help out with the gardening. The gnome blinked, stretched like it just woke up from the century-long nap, then shrugged and got to work. Because that's how gnomes work these days. The gnome waddled over to the nearby not yet mature plants, waved its tiny hands and magically aged them up in seconds. As a parting gift, it also tossed a few seed packets on the ground. With the gnome handling the gardening duties, Tinkerbell fluttered over and began enchanting the nearby plants, sprinkling a bit of sparkle and sass on everything green. Buzzing with energy and full of himself, Lucifer figured not even a gnome could slow him down. So naturally, he went ahead and kicked one. The gnomes, furious at the assault, unleashed their wrath by withering the enchanted plants on the spot. Celeste, witnessing the chaos, pulled Lucifer aside for a serious talk about his reckless behavior. Later, Tinkerbell tried to make amends on her father's behalf. But the gnomes weren't having it. They struck her with the thunderbolts again and again, and even zapped Celeste for good measure. It was either a miracle or a classic EA oversight that neither of them dropped dead on the spot. After several attempts, the gnomes were impressed by Tinkerbell's stubborn determination, or maybe just tired of throwing thunderbolts. The gnomes finally forgave her and revived the enchanted plant from the dead, one sparkly leaf at a time. To complete her work assignment, Celeste returned to the park only to find a random stranger squatting on her usual spot. She gave them a polite hello, then passive-aggressively sat up next to them like the true professional she is. While Celeste focused seriously on her assignment, Tinkerbell was busy squeezing herself into one of the park's decorative furniture pieces. Classic fairy behavior, really. Back home, Lucifer was patrolling the neighborhood like he owned it. When the oldest vampire, Vlad, dropped by for a surprise visit, Lucifer graciously invited him in, but not before casually stripping him of his vampirism, like a bouncer confiscating contraband at the door. Seeing Vlad sulk over his lost vampirism, Lucifer didn't miss a beat. He zipped over and bottled up the gloomy aura without a shred of sympathy. After all, sad emotions are rare and he is not one to waste good material. As a twisted little parting gift for dropping by, Lucifer slapped Vlad with a random ailment because what's hospitality without a little chaos? While doing the job of some self-appointed supernatural sheriff, Lucifer spotted another vampire, Lilith this time. He called her over with a smirk and just like her brother, gifted her with the ultimate surprise, mortality wrapped in a smile. After turning Lilith mortal, Lucifer didn't miss a beat. He leaned in and absorbed her fresh wave of sadness, savoring the rare emotional vintage like a true connoisseur. Just then, Tinkerbell spotted some lightning root leaves gleaming temptingly nearby. She reached out to collect them only to get zapped mid-snatch. Nature really said, nice try. But Tinkerbell's sing fingers and all wasn't one to back down from a challenge. She even used her enchantment to force the plant to bloom instantly. Because if nature was going to play rough, so was she. Zapped and humiliated, Tinkerbell snapped, rebelling against nature itself. She stormed through the neighborhood, recklessly absorbing emotions from unsuspecting Sims like an emotional vacuum on sugar high. Honestly, I was half expecting her to fry herself with an overload, but the game was too kind. So instead, the little menace lived on, tormenting every poor soul in sight. And that pretty much sums up my experience with the fairies in the Enchanted by Nature pack. In my opinion, the pack isn't exactly game-changing, but it is packed with the occult flavor. I like how it adds little touch of unpredictability, whether it's moody plants, vengeful gnomes, or emotion-based chaos. Fairies can enchant, bottle moods, stir up drama, and mess with other Sims in creative ways. It doesn't overhaul the gameplay, but it gives you enough weird tools to tell fun, chaotic stories, and honestly, sometimes that's all I need. So yeah, not essential, but if you enjoy storytelling, especially with the occult Sims, this pack's a nice one to have. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.